Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper. I'm giving you a sneak peek of some new goodies that are going to be coming in the online exclusives very soon. One of these stamp sets I actually got for free because I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator. We have an online event coming up at the weekend actually, and this suite is what is going to be used in the online event. So I didn't purchase all of it, and I can't show you it on a flyer because it hasn't come out yet. But what I can show you what I did purchase. So the College Botanicals, which is this set here, was actually my free set for signing up for the online course. And then to add to that, I purchased the Notes of Collage stamp set and the Notes of Collage die set. I'm just going to flip that over so you can see. So this die here cuts out this large leaf here, and this die here cuts out this sort of, I don't know, really floral bit, I suppose. And then you've got some little dots which sort of match this, well, sort of pebble shapes, which sort of match this stamp, although it doesn't coordinate with it. And then you've got this sort of lattice effect, and then this piece, which is like a piece of wood, which you could stamp that on for some grain, I suppose. But today we're not using the dies, we're just going to use the stamps. I've got all my stamps inked up. I'm just going to show you the card we're going to make. So this was my prototype, and I got the instructions for this off, let me give her credit. It was Karen Titus, which is Stamping on the Back Porch, and she has got a free printable PDF. The measurements are all in Imperial because she's an American demonstrator, and I've converted them to fit with our English A4, so therefore it's in centimetres. So I'll just talk you through. So first of all, I'm going to open that back up so you can see. It's half of an A4 sheet of Golden Glow as the base. That's Golden Glow. It's one of the in colours. I've cut it as I normally would for a C6 card, would be like that. So that's half of an A4 sheet cut across the width of the sheet, which gives me a card base that's 14.8 top to bottom and 10.5 across. Because it's the whole width of the paper, it's 21 centimetres. And then what I've done is I have scored it in the middle as I normally would at 10.5. Obviously it's 21 across, so I've scored it at 10.5, and then I have folded it. I haven't scored it. I've folded it back so that it's in half, but it would be 5.25 if you wanted to score it. So it's basically a Z fold that's turned on its side, and then you've got the little extra piece in here, which I still need to put a piece of white in there, but I'll do that one on the one that I'm showing you. So that is cut at, where are we? Sorry, 18.9. So it's 18 centimetres tall, scored at 9, and it's 9 wide, so it gives us a little 9 by 9 interior card. So it's another sort of card within a card. Then there are some papers, and I will show them to you, but they're not available yet. So these are the papers. So there's that you can see they're sort of coordinated, they're sort of abstract drawings really. That's the front of that one, and then that's the back of that one. And then you've got that one there, and that's the back of that one, little dots, dottage. And then you've got this one, which you could actually cut up into little card fronts if you wanted to, and that's the back of it. Now that reminds me of the weather map, the lines that show the pressure. And then you've got this one here, which again is, they're all very abstract, and that's got this sort of painterly brush strokes on the back. And the last one is this one, and then we get those sort of high pressure and low pressure lines again. Oh, one more. And then there's this one, and this has got the sort of painterly effect on the back. And I'll just tell you what the colours are. We have got Cajun Craze, which is this sort of dark, I'm trying to see where I can show you a piece where it'll pick it out. It's sort of a dark orange, almost a mustard, but not quite. So that's Cajun Craze. And then we have got Golden Glow, which we've made our card base from, which is this colour here. Lost Lagoon, which is the bluey colours. The sort of greeny blue is Lost Lagoon. Pecan Pie, which is a dark brown, which I can't see for the life of me. Probably that. Although, no, actually, that's probably Cajun Craze, because they're quite water effects. Petal Pink, which is this pink here, and Secret Sea, which is the sort of greeny grey. So there are some nice colours in there. I'm just going to slide these papers away. The reason I haven't used these papers for my project is because I don't yet know which sheets I'm going to need for the online event, and I didn't want to find that I was left without the right colours that I was going to need for the online event. Just slide those back in there to protect those. Okay, so yeah, they're very unusual. They're not really my style, if I'm honest. I'm a bit more of a floral or sort of moody, gardeny type girl, but you know, it's always good to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So because we're not going to use those papers, we're going to do a one sheet wonder. Now, Golden Glow, because it's one of the new in colours, the 26 to 28 in colours, it isn't on the colour wheel. So these are our basic colours. They're not on the in colours aren't on the colour wheel because they go out more quickly than the standard colours. So I did a bit of Googling. Gotta love a bit of Google, haven't you? And asked Google which colours went well with Golden Glow. And one of the colours it came up with was Crumb Cake. So I've actually used Crumb Cake as my base card for this one. And for the one that I'm going to show you how to put together now, I'm going to use Basic White. So you can decide at the end which one you like the best. Right, I'm just going to move that out of the way because I've got an entire sheet of A4 cardstock and you will need most of the sheet. So to be fair, rather than doing half a sheet and then finding out I'm tight for cardstock, I'd rather do a whole sheet and then use the leftovers to make another project with. So for instance, these were my leftover bits and pieces. This is what I had left from my A4 sheet. So there is a big enough piece there to do a card front, and there's a few trimmings there if I need to use those. Okay, sorry, I've got stuff falling down on my desk everywhere because I end up with a big pile and then it all slides everywhere. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our one sheet wonder. Now the thing with a one sheet wonder is I'm not very good at doing random stamping, so my one sheet wonders tend to be a bit more orderly. There are lots of examples of one sheet wonders on the internet, and there's a great Stampin' Up demonstrator called Esther Howard who does a huge amount of one sheet wonders, and she's brilliant at it. Yeah, so right, we're going to have a go at this. So I'm going to use this stamp. This is the biggest stamp, so when you're doing a one sheet wonder, it's a good idea to always start with the biggest stamp. And as you can see, I've got that on quite a large block. If I sort of compare my hand to it, it's almost the same size as my hand. So we're going to go across. Now the trick with one sheet wonders not getting too messy is to try not to get too much ink on the block, otherwise you end up making a bit of a mess. So be a bit gentle when you are inking up. You need enough ink on there to stamp, but you don't want so much ink that you're leaving grid lines in between because that will just look messy. So I'm going to do 3 lines, and this may not be the straightest thing in the world because I'm trying to do it under a camera, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to chop it up anyway. Okay, so we've got a line there. So as you can see, if you wanted to do a continuous line of this particular stamp, I move that up, hopefully you can see. It's actually quite easy to line up and then stamp the other half. So I've done the full width of the stamp there, and then I've just inked up sort of the left hand side of it, and it's quite easy to match it up without it being an obvious match. Okay, so that's that one out of the way. So I'm just gonna, I have to close my inks up in between each different stamp, or I'm going to end up getting in a right mess. Okay, so that's that one. We are going to need that colour again in a minute. And then I'm going on to some Golden Glow. So these are our new ink pads. They're magnetic, they come apart and just sort of click back together. And I'm using this sort of brush piece of foliage. And again, I'm not very good at doing random, so I tend to repeat what I'm doing. So don't worry too much if you can't see what I'm doing down the bottom half. It's the same as this. You know, I'm not precise. I don't line it up. I just sort of the general random pattern. And then it's always good on a one sheet wonder to do some that go over the edge. So I'm just stamping those over the edge there, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Hopefully you can still see down the bottom. So that's that one. I'm just going to get a wipe and give my stamp a wipe, because I don't have a huge craft desk. If I don't tidy up as I go along, I get in a huge mess. Everything goes everywhere, and then I can't find anything, and I end up putting ink everywhere. Oh, it's a right nightmare. Right, now we're coming in with some Lost Lagoon, which was one of the other colours that was in there, and I'm going to first of all use this round sort of you know, wonky circle, and I'm just going to randomly, in not too much of an order, although my body sort of automatically does it, stamp. And the thing about a one sheet wonder is it's your creation, so it doesn't matter if they're not the same every time. Because, you know, first of all, you're going to chop it up. You're never going to make a card with this on the front. Well, you might, I suppose, but rarely. So mainly you're going to chop it up. And once you start chopping it up, you won't, you know, you won't see if you've gone a bit awry somewhere. Right, so that's our, whatever I said it was. Can't remember now. I say it was Lost Lagoon. And then on the other side of my block, which is a bit naughty, but I often do this, there's these little sort of bobbly bits, and I'm also going to do those. So you can see we've started with the biggest, and we're sort of working our way. I'm sorry about this if it's going out of focus, but it's not easy because it's a whole sheet, and I'm trying not to knock stuff off my desk. So this is where we do get quite random in an organised manner, if that makes sense. So just turn your stamp around, put it up one way somewhere, and then up the other way somewhere else, and just fill in. The idea of a one sheet wonder is we don't want to see loads of white cardstock. Okay, so that's that. And then we are coming in with another. This time we're bringing in some pecan pie. And yes, I have thrown every colour that's in the cardstock at this, in the designer series paper, sorry. Okay, so these are the little sort of pebbly bits. And again, just go round, randomly stamping in your gaps, just to fill them up. Again, don't forget to go over the edges occasionally. And it doesn't matter if you stamp over another piece, because that's, you know, that's the randomness of abstract. Okay, we'll have another one of those in there. Okay, right, now what we're going to do is come in with one of the bigger stamps. And I know I told you to start with the biggest stamp, and I stand by that, but this is the sort of squiggly stamp, as if somebody's sort of gone like that with a pen. And this might seem counterintuitive, but we're going to stamp over the top of the stuff we've already stamped. So again, I'm using cloud cover here, so it's, Secrecy rather. So it's really important not to get your block too inky, and if you need to, stop and wipe it off, and try not to get it on your fingers. Right, okay, I'll have one in there, and you can see I'm gradually filling up the space as we're going down the sheet, and we're going to go off the edge there and off the edge there. The great thing about photopolymer is you can see where you've still got ink on your stamp, and I did warn you at the beginning that this is a very messy thing to do. As you can see from my hands, I always get covered, which is why I've got no rings on. Absolutely covered. Right, and then we're just going to come back in with the Petal Pink. Just add a few more pops of that pink, because at the moment the only thing that we've got is this border effect. So I'm using the other set of sort of bubbles, if you like, and I'm just filling in gaps in no particular order, just where I can see there is a bit of a gap. I'm just going round, and again, it doesn't matter if you end up going over something you've already stamped. Okay, oh, I'll have one down there, and it's quite a good way to cover up smudges as well if you've got a few smudges. I'll go across the corner with that one like that. Okay, as I said, just filling in the gaps. It's not a problem to have a little bit of white showing. I just wanted to not have too much, didn't want it to be too bare. Okay, I think that'll do. Okay, so I'm just going to put the lid on my Petal Pink, slide that over there, clear up the stamps when we're done. So there's our one sheet wonder. So I'm just going to bring this piece of paper away, and hopefully you can see. I haven't tried to copy the designer series paper. I've just made my own using the stamps that I liked the best. Okay, so now what we've got to do is chop that up a bit in order for it to fit on our base card. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer. Now, I found the easiest way to do this was to cut it in half. Well, not quite half, almost half. Let me just move those out of the way. So for the back of our card, which is this piece here, this is the biggest piece of cardstock there that we need, and that needs to be cut at 14.3 by 10. So I'm going to cut it at 14.3. Just move that one out of the way, and then I'm going to chop it down to 10. And this is where you get to choose. If you like this side better, you know, go that way. If you like the other side better, go the other way. I'm not being particularly fussy, so I'm just chopping that in half, and that's our first and biggest piece. The piece I've just chopped off, I'm going to now bring in, because this is then going to be these two pieces here, this one here and this one here, and we need to cut those, two of those, at 14.3 by 4.5. Well, we already know it's 14.3 because we cut it off the other piece that we've just done, and they've got to be cut at 4.5 centimeters. So I'm just going to trim those now. 1, 2, and it's really nice if you are using paper that you've cut up that you try and keep the patterns together. I'm going to put that piece to one side for now. So they will go on our front, and then we need a square piece for our internal card, and that needs to be 8.5 by 8.5. So because our little card is 9 by 9, so I'm going to just chop that there and chop that there. Okay, so that's all our pieces of patterned paper. that we need, apart from a small piece to go under the sentiment, which we'll deal with in a minute. But what I do need is a piece of basic white, which is going to go inside our little card, and we know that we need that 8.5 by 8.5. So I'm just going to use a piece of scrap that's just big enough. 8.5 by 8.5. This is obviously the same size as the piece of white that is on the a piece of pattern paper, sorry, which is on the front. Okay, so that's all our bits and pieces there. So let's retrieve our card base, wherever it went. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Oh, and I had already cut a piece of white, never mind. Okay, so my tip, if you're cutting this using English cutting instructions, is that when you cut these 9 by 9 pieces from one sheet of A4, if you're making a lot of these cards, if you actually cut it to 18 centimeters by chopping the bottom off the A4 sheet, that will give you another one of these. Now I hadn't realized that to start with, so I had loads of square bits left. So I've actually made a flap on mine, which you're not going to see because that white piece is going to go in there. And if you were really bothered about the edges, you could put another piece of our designer series paper that we've made in first. Okay, so let's get back to the card base. So we've got our C6 card base, which is half of an A4 sheet cut across the width of the A4 sheet. And then what we need to do is we need to fold the front of that card back on itself to make a Z fold card. Now you can score it. I tend to just do it by eye, but if you feel happier scoring it on your trimmer, it's 5.25, so you can do that. And then I'm just going to burnish it both ways because this is the bit that is going to move quite a lot. Okay, and I'm burnishing my middle fold as well. Okay, so we've got our C6 card base, and if we carried on like that, that would make us a Z fold card, which I've made in another video recently using the balloon festoon. But we don't want to do that. We're going to turn it 45 degrees, and we want to use it like that. Okay, so this is going to be an easel card. So the first thing we need to do is to stick our bigger piece of our homemade DSP into the back of the card, and I'm just using Tombow because I find it easier to line up, but use whatever adhesive you prefer. And that piece is going to go in here. Like that. Okay, then I'm going to stick my white piece inside there. So let's put some glue on that. And as I said, if it really bothered you, I mean, you won't have a seam in effect like I have because actually I was going to do it that way, but then when we open it, more of it will be seen. So let's do it on the back like that. So this piece then gets layered. Sorry, I'll move the camera up. As I said before, because I don't have a very big desk, I tend to sometimes end up out of shot, so apologies for that if I have. I do try and keep an eye on it and make sure I move back in to shot. So that's that. And then we've got our piece of homemade DSP to go on the front of that little card. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so that's that. Hopefully you can see. And obviously, if you're using patterned paper that has a direction, make sure you get the direction right. Okay, so I'm going to pop that aside for a minute, and now we're going to come on to these two pieces that are going to come in here. Now, because I cut them all out of one piece, I'm trying my best to line them up. Okay, that there. And that there. It always looks much nicer if there's an obvious pattern that it continues down the page. Otherwise it can look a little bit mismatched. You know, again, it's a randomly printed piece of paper, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's just my OCD tendencies like it to match. Okay, and then we're going to line that up. Now this is the important bit. You do need to get it in line with the bit above, because that looks really wonky if it isn't. And then obviously this bit is going on the bottom half. Okay, so just making sure that that is equidistant. Okay, there we go. So we've got our 3 panels now, the back of our card, and our sort of fold, the Z fold part. Okay, and then this card is going to go on there like that. But we need to make sure that when we open this, it's going to hook in there. So basically I've done it by eye. I can't really give you measurements, but you want enough of it to cover the bottom flap that it can hook in. So yeah, just sort of offer it up, and then you can work out roughly where you want it to go. Now we worked out we need it in the middle, and we want a gap at the top. Okay, so I'm not pressing that down yet. I'm just offering it up to make sure that that's going to be low enough to stand it up. And I think we'll be okay there. And then what we need to do, we've got our strip, which is going to be our stopper, if you like. That's going to slide in behind there. This is the fiddly bit, because you've got to get this stopper in the right place, that enough of that card pushes behind it. And this is where the tiny little adhesive strips come in handy. What did I do with them? I know I had some on my desk here a minute ago. What have I done with them? Okay, and this can still be in this. Here they are. So these aren't Stampin' Up ones. These are just some that I got off the internet, but you know, we do sell something very similar. And what we need to do is make sure that those tiny little strips are right near to the edge of our Golden Glow piece. And always use silicone scissors to cut your sticky bits. Don't use your decent scissors, otherwise they'll get gummed up. And that bit was just a little bit too short, so we're just adding another piece in there. Okay, I'll pop that piece that we're not using back on the sheet for another time. Now, as I said, I've done a little bit of experimentation with this. I haven't pulled the backs off yet, but you do need to make sure that your card will fit in through like that. Okay, so I've found the best way to, because it needs to stand up like that. Okay, so I found the best way to do this is to keep it fairly near the top, because you do need it tucked through. So I'm just going to open that out and take off the backing off my sticky tape. This is not a good thing to use dimensionals for unless you make this strip even wider than I have, because obviously the dimensionals are a hexagon. So we know that we need it level with that, and we know that we need it fairly near the top. So by putting the card down flat and making sure we've got sort of equal bits each side and that it's straight. Okay, that's that. And so that will then tuck behind there to stand our card up. Okay, and then we just need a greeting along here. So your choices here, you could cut another piece of our homemade DSP to fit on there. So we know that that is, what did I say that was? That is 3/4 of an inch. No, sorry, 2 centimetres by 8.5. This piece here, let's just check that. Oh no, ignore me. This is 12 by 2. I've done it a little bit longer because I had trouble getting it to go through. So we just need to cut this down. So I'm just going to bring, oh, sorry, if that just came up on the screen, my phone is getting low. That is 2 centimetres, and we're going to cut that down to 12. No, 11.5, because we want it a little bit smaller so we can see our golden glow. And that means I need to cut it down to 1.5 centimetres. Okay, which is a little fiddly, but we'll give it a go. So that came out 11. Now, I've been filming all afternoon for my next class, so apologies if that low battery mode thing came up, and I should just get this finished. This is probably the longest of the videos. Okay, so we're just going to stick that on there. So we've trimmed it so we've got our little edge all the way through, and then, as I said, that then tucks behind there like that. Okay, and that will hold the easel up. Hopefully you can see that there. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is put a sentiment across the front, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment or stamp something inside this little part here, but you don't need to see me do that, especially since my phone is almost flat. So I'm just going to bring that one in, and I'm going to bring back in the one I did first of all. And I've got to say, I think I do prefer it on the white. Hopefully you can see both of those. The crumb cake is nice, but I think I prefer the clean lines of the white against the golden glow. And then to send it, you can just either fold it up like that and it will fit into a C6 envelope, or you can fold it that way and put it in an envelope. Yeah, and then obviously hopefully you're there when the person opens it, so you can show them how to stand it up. So there's our 2 cards. Hope you like them, and I hope you'll give it a go. And as I said, I got the idea from Karen Titus over at Stampin' on the Back Porch, and she has actually got a downloadable PDF, although the instructions, as I said, are in inches, and I've done it in centimetres. But any questions, please feel free to comment below. Hopefully you'll give me a thumbs up and share it widely, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks for watching, and happy stamping.